Let's go. What's going on, guys? We're gonna talk about today following your passion, and what's the truth? What's the reality of following your passion, following your dreams? As somebody who's a quote unquote failed entrepreneur, I've done this a bunch of times, haven't always been successful at it. I can kind of tell you the truth about following your passions. All right, it's gonna be real raw. So without further ado, let's get into it. So the first thing I want to say is I don't think it's wrong to try to follow your passions. I don't think that is a false sentiment. I do think that the advice is incomplete. As somebody who's been following their passion, quote unquote, off and on for over 10 years, I can tell you that I've had a lot of pitfalls with that because people don't give you the full story about following their passion. Here's kind of what they do from my experience. So one thing is you might have a person who, say, oh, I quit my job and in the next 6 months I became a millionaire. But what they don't tell you is that they've also been doing this for 15 years. And then they finally got tired and they quit their job, but they've had 15 years of experience in either different failed business ventures or in whatever background they're in. And then they decide to quit their job and start their own thing. Also, what they don't tell you is a lot more people fail than they succeed. It doesn't mean that you can't succeed, but a lot of times you have to fail enough times before you can succeed because you need the experience. If you don't know where you're going, how are you going to have a map? And so sometimes that's what these people do online is they market to you. They say, hey man, I've done this in 6 months. Come over here, because they know more than you, but not enough for you to know that they might not know as much as you think that they know. Does that make sense what I'm saying? So if I know more than you and I've been somewhat successful in my field, then I can give you advice on how to be successful in my field. And that makes me more successful because now you're going to buy my courses, my classes, my books, and different things like that. And I'm not saying that's a scam or it's always a scam, but sometimes that is part of the ecosystem to sell you. Because if I'm really good at that thing, I'm probably doing more business doing that thing than selling to you guys about how to do that thing. Not saying that you can't do that, but usually that comes from years and years of doing something before putting it out there. Another reason why it's incomplete because they don't always tell you the work that it takes to do it. You know what I'm saying? So for me as a person who is, I say a failed entrepreneur, whatever, who cares, right? As a person who's a failed entrepreneur multiple times, I think I thought that passion and vision alone was enough, and it's not. I thought that just, dreaming big and being like, oh, I want to do this, I can do this is enough, and it's not. You kind of have, it doesn't mean that you can't do this. I'm not trying to discourage anybody, but you have to have a plan, and then you have to have resources to back that plan. Does that make sense what I'm saying? So for me, even as a creator, there's certain things that now I can do that I couldn't do 5 years ago, 7 years ago. Like even with videos, I can be able to post this video up, thumbnail I can make in ChatGPT, scripted in ChatGPT. I can do all these things that would have took us hours years ago. You know what I mean? So for a lot of creators, it was hard for them to be able to produce this much stuff because you didn't have the resources to have to do it. And that's kind of where money comes in. It doesn't mean that you have to have a lot of money. But you do have to have some money. Nowadays, I think you can have less money with YouTube and TikTok and stuff like that. But years ago, you still had to have a budget. You know what I mean? Like, hey, if we're going to film this, we might have to have a studio, or we might have to film on location, means we might have to have some permits, and we might have to do, you know what I'm saying? Now you don't necessarily need that. You can go outside, you can film on your iPhone, you could do different things like that, and you can make content this way. So when people are telling you to follow your dreams and chase your passions, it does not mean that you can't, but you have to have a comprehensive, whole understanding of that. Does that make sense what I'm saying? And another thing about that is, like I said, sometimes that stuff takes time. So like when you're older, or as time goes on and you get older, you also have to understand you have responsibilities, whether it be a family, whether it be bills, and shit is expensive now. So it's like with all these things, it's like, man, like you can follow your dreams, but I gotta have a job, I gotta pay bills and stuff like that. It sucks. It depends on where you live. Some places are cheaper than others, but that's kind of the reality. So sometimes these people, they don't tell you the truth. Another thing that they do is sometimes people lie. Some of these people are scammers. I know they're not telling you that, but some of these people are scammers. They're fraudsters. Sometimes their million could come from fraud or different things like that. And it's not saying that people aren't successful at what they do. There are very successful people at what they do. But it's some people who also made it by not being truthful. We see that on social media all the time where people, they had this Ponzi scheme and this fraud scheme and this, that, and third, and now they're in prison. So you have to be careful of those things. One thing I do recommend though, and this is just me, if you are a person that's saying, hey, I want to leave my job and I want to do this, one, I would try to have some money to sustain myself. Doesn't mean that you got to have a lot. You just need to have something to sustain you to your next venture. You don't always know when your next check is going to come in from creating. If you have people that do something, like, excuse me, like for example, if you're a photographer and you have people that have studios and you have opportunities already that are open and available to you, then maybe do that. You know what I'm saying? You can start there. But if you're kind of just starting from ground zero, it's kind of hard without a road map. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying you don't have to believe in yourself, because you really, really do. But another thing you're going to have to do is you're going to have to go full speed in whatever that direction it is to get to that check as soon as you can, or to get to whatever that is. So if you're deciding, hey, like I want to, leave my job and I want to, create videos, or I want to do this, I want to do that. One, you need something to sustain your livelihood, unless you're just going to go on road and, you know what I'm saying, go from place to place, door dashing and stuff, which people do that, but you also kind of have to go full speed in the direction you want to go. So if you're not a self-starter, if you're not going to get up and be productive, and like you waiting for people to tell you to make videos and content, that's probably not going to happen. And I'm not saying don't waste your time, but it's hard, man. It's hard. Like right now, this is a test to me. Like, how many videos can I put out? How consistent can I be at making videos? I've been making videos for a long time. They're not great, but I've been making content for a long time too. And I still haven't gotten to the peaks or valleys that I want to get to, but I'm still putting my toes in the dirt every day, and I'm moving forward. So this is not to condemn you. This is not to discourage you from doing it. It's kind of to give you the reality of following your passion. I'm walking outside, but I'm really just in my backyard, you know what I'm saying, making videos, because I'm trying to do as many videos as I can to see what I can do and get my reps in. But this is what like running full speed in that direction looks like. You know what I mean? When I'm off on my off days, I'm making videos. I sit up and I rest when I need to rest, but I also get to it and I do what I need to do. I don't know when this is going to take off. I have no clue. Since chasing my dream, I've been unemployed about 5, 6, 7 times. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm like, oh, this is the idea that's going to work. And it might work, but it might not sustain. Or it might not do this, it might not sustain. So you have to find something to sustain you while you're able to do the other things that you want to do. And if you have a job that's flexible, that's even better. I think it doesn't mean you always got to work full time. Sometimes you can do something part time that's going to allow you, but create a different things like that. But it has to be sustainable with whatever your life, looks like. Does it make sense what I'm saying? So it's got to be sustainable based on whatever bills you have to pay and responsibilities that you have and stuff like that. If you're thinking of just going all in and just like not having a plan, I don't recommend that, because I know these people make it look easy. They make it look great, but it's not as easy as it looks. It can be easier, but you have to put the reps in. And it's just like a sport. It's just like anything else. Sometimes you have to be better than other people. Sometimes you got to have some luck added to it as well. Yeah, so this is the true advice I would say about following your dreams. I'm not saying don't do it. Have your plan, though, and understand that plans change, and being able to pivot when the plans don't work out, Even as content creators and stuff like that, there are peaks and valleys. Some seasons you'll do really well, some seasons you won't. I got a best friend who's an artist, been full-time for about 7 years, and some seasons are really hot, and some seasons he's like, bro, what am I doing? So you have to be okay with that. Know that 9 to 5, it secures you. 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks you get a check. You know what I mean? And you allow that to either get you the resources you need, get you the team you need, or build, the kind of life and things like that you need and that you're looking for. You understand what I'm saying? So that's my recommendation. I think that this is, from my experience. Like I said, you don't have to take it verbatim. You can do what you want with this information, but that's the incomplete truth I think people tell you about following your dreams and passions. It's not always what you think it is. Just like the other side of the coin, it is possible, but part of what they do is that to sell you so you can kind of buy into what they're saying, and also, lifestyle creep and different things like that. But whatever, drop your thoughts in the comments. Till next time, peace.